back, folks. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. He's Tone to Shields. I'm Rob Ellis. We'll be joined shortly by David Murphy from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He was had a little internet issue, Tone, so he's working on that right now.
Okay. All right, cool.
So as soon as he's up, you just give me the high sign and we will rock and roll. So we were talking about a couple different things, regarding the Eagles. First and foremost, would you go with the starters in this game against the Giants? And also kind of trying to assess blame here. When you lose and drop 4 of their last 5, the way that they have, they're the first team in the NFL, Tone, to start 10-1 and then lose 4 of their next 5. That has never happened in the history of the NFL. So it has been a pretty seismic fall here for this team, and where things are. And I'll ask you this, in your estimation, are there any signs of life? Is there any signs of hope, any glimmer of hope in your estimation, realistically, that they get, short of, yes, anything can happen, anybody can win, but do you really think that this team is capable of getting on a real run?
Well, you know what? We should probably reserve that question because we have our guy David Murphy that just
Murph's
popped
up right now. Okay.
just popped in. So let's bring our guy David Murphy in and let's ask him that question because I think that's a hell of a question that we need to really visit. Our guy David Murphy in the building.
Yeah, what's up, Murph? David does an excellent job, man, as a columnist for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and it doesn't matter what the sport is. Always really, really insightful. You can follow him by David Murphy on Twitter/X. Murph, I'll start with that one, man. In your estimation, do you see a shot here? Do you see a pathway where this team still realistically, has a chance to at least get to a Super Bowl or win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, man. I actually just wrote this today. I think back to kind of a month ago when the Eagles played the Bills, and this is still the same team. They beat the Bills in overtime that night a month ago. They were 10-1. Everyone was riding high, and look what was happening up in Buffalo. They fired their coordinator. Everyone was wondering if McDermott had lost control of the team. And now here we are. Buffalo's playing for the number 2 seed in the AFC. Might be the hottest team in the NFL. Personally, my dark horse favorite to go to the Super Bowl. So a lot changes in a month, and a month from now, we're still not even going to be the Super Bowl yet. So, yeah, I mean, I think things change fast, and they've changed fast in the wrong direction for the Eagles. But I don't think anyone can say that they're dead in the water. I think we just don't know right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the scary part about this team, David. We appreciate you for coming on. It's just there's so many unknowns, surrounding this team, and that's not a good thing in my opinion at this point in the season, right? It's week 18. And we're still talking about what your identity is on offense, and we're still talking about them not playing their best football game yet. Obviously, all the turbulence and the dysfunction surrounding the team over the past few weeks with the Desai demotion, the Patricia elevation, Nick Sirianni's press conferences, and then the A.J. Brown stuff. It's just been a lot to digest with this team that's going on off the field. What's been your overall take or your overall evaluation of just over the past few weeks for the Philadelphia Eagles off the field?
Yeah, man. I mean, it has not looked good. I mean, I'll say that. I've been a big Sirianni guy, really ever since midway through his first year. And, I keep defending him and everything. You go back to the Dom thing. You go back to just kind of the juvenile energy on the sidelines at times. There's a lot of things they have to clean up. I'm with you. I think that the A.J. Brown stuff was probably a little overblown. I mean, look, we were all there for T.O. This wasn't that. This isn't Antonio Brown. I was there when he talked the other day, and he's always struck me as like a guy who means well. I mean, he's a wide receiver. They're emotional. Everyone wants to win. Everyone's frustrated. I really don't know if it goes deeper than that right now. But we'll see. I mean, look, if if they lose in the first round, God forbid, then who knows? I mean, this team clearly has shown that it doesn't necessarily respond to adversity in the best way. Fan base too. I mean, look, we've all been spoiled for the last year and a half, and I mean, 10-1, 14-3, nearly winning the Super Bowl. we're going to see what this team's made of. You know, I mean, this is kind of the time when you have to grind your way through it and show who you really are.
Murph, would you play the starters Sunday?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I can't believe this is even a thing.
Yeah, like what? So when Sirianni said that, I had to like open up my phone and look at the standings and like make sure that I wasn't missing something.
Yeah.
That to me is like the weirdest thing that I can't believe even entertained it, you know?
Me too.
Yeah, I don't understand that it's even. I don't get why it's even a talking point.
I mean, it's so obvious.
Like,
you could still win the division. You're playing the same time. Sorry,
Dallas lost this game last year.
Yep.
You know, they were in the same situation and they got blown out by the commies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like this is a game that Mike McCarthy loses.
Yeah.
You know, this is a game that the Cowboys lose. I mean, you can't. And even going into it thinking that we're going to be looking at the scoreboard and like. That's the wrong message. That's attitude. That's how people get hurt. That's like, you know, like that's how you lose a game that you know. Yeah, I don't get that. I totally don't get that narrative at all.
Well, and on top of it also, I want them to show some semblance of fight and play a decent game just for their own mental capacity, mental psyche.
Yeah,
on top of the
you know, we've been waiting for that.
I know. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you know.
I mean, that's the thing. I'll be honest with you. That Giants game might have been the most discouraging game of them all. You know, I was expecting them to come out and just kind of blow the doors off, and the fact that they couldn't beat, you know, Tommy DeVito or Tyrod Taylor or whoever was in there. You know, that was as bad as they looked again in that game. I think was almost worse than any of the losses that they've had.
Mm-hmm.
Worse than that Cardinals one. That Cardinals one was ugly.
Giants team ain't good though. Cardinals are at least competitive. Like that Giants team is not.
That's true.
They're not competitive. You know, like they can't. They're on their third quarterback. Last guy got benched. I mean, that team has just been brutal to watch all year, and the fact that the Eagles came out and like slogged it a little bit was discouraging.
Let me ask you this, David. I mean, what's been your thoughts or your evaluation of how this team has been responding to Nick Sirianni throughout the season, especially as of late? His role has been called into question, his job, what he does, everything about him has been called into question, his leadership, whether he's lost a locker room or not. What's been your evaluation of Nick Sirianni over the past several weeks and the season as a whole when you think about everything this team has experienced?
Well, that's the thing is like it's the last 7 weeks versus the season as a whole. I mean, like let's not forget, like this team has up until the last 4 or 5 weeks has really always responded under him. I mean, look, they went through. Think about what we were talking about at the end of October or end of September. That this tough stretch that they were going through. Beat the Rams on the road. We're clearly the better team on the field against the Dolphins. You know, kind of that Chiefs game was kind of a mullet because of the conditions, but they beat the Chiefs. Frankly, they should have lost to the Bills, in my opinion. But you know, they had 90 yards of penalties and turned the ball over, and you know, the Bills kind of lost that game. But the Eagles look good. You know, offensively they look good. You know, the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving or around Thanksgiving that you know they've won a ton of big games, and they responded to Sirianni in the Super Bowl. You know, they've won practically every big game that they've had up until these last 4 or 5 weeks under Sirianni. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, what? It's very confusing to me. I didn't see this in the cards. I mean, I don't know. How do you weigh, you know, the first 27, 30 games of Sirianni's tenure with you know, these last 4 or 5 weeks? I find it hard to believe that, you know, the guy's just been fooling everybody for 30 weeks and you know, his team suddenly turned on him in a month. You know, I think it's more likely. Look, Darius Slay, James Bradbury I always called James Bradbury Ray Bradbury, like Fahrenheit 451. But James Bradbury, Darius Slay, I think they've lost a step.
Bradbury would cover better, Murph.
Yeah.
Than James has. Yeah.
They have been burned. James Bradbury, Darius Slay have lost a step. They haven't been as good as last year. You know, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, we saw him last year, how much better they were when he was in there versus when he was injured. Look, they're everyone. Part of the problem is our expectations. Is everyone talked themselves into a stupor because they drafted the Georgia defense. Well, guess what? I mean, you answer the question. The Georgia defense couldn't beat an NFL team, you know, because you know, Nolan Smith, where is he? Where's, you know, Kelee Ringo, you know, where is he? They just weren't as good defensively as people thought, I think. And then you couple that with Slay getting hurt and losing a step and Bradbury losing a step. And, like, look, I think that's – I don't think that's a Sirianni thing underperforming. I think maybe they're just who they were all along. And, they kind of won a few lucky games early on, and this is just who they are.
I'll ask you the same question.
Does any of that make sense?
It all makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense.
It all makes sense. I've asked everybody the last couple of weeks the same question, and I want to pose it to you. I want to be real specific with this. The defensive line, to me, has killed them. They're not getting to the quarterback consistently enough. They're not stopping the run. Yet they're relatively healthy, and there's a lot of resources put into that unit. Why has the play dipped so much for that crew?
Well, Jordan Davis has been a disappointment.
Yep.
Are you guys getting me? I feel like
we can hear you.
We got you.
No, we got you.
All right. Jordan Davis has been a disappointment.
Yeah.
You're talking about the run defense, right? Yeah.
Run or pass.
Yeah.
I mean, their sacks are down.
Jalen
They're down 29 sacks from last year.
I think Jalen Carter. Yeah, I think Jordan Davis is I'm sorry, Jordan Davis hasn't been great. Jalen Carter's hitting a wall, I'm sure. I mean, look, Hassan Reddick, he can't protect the edge. That's why people didn't want him when he was a free agent. I mean, he's kind of a one-dimensional player. He's great at that dimension, but look, Jonathan Gannon knows the weaknesses of this defense, and I think if you go back and watch that tape, you'll see exactly why they are who they've been all year, because Gannon knew everything to do against them. He knew to attack the edge. He knew that Nicholas Morrow can't run side to side. He knew that Vontae Maddox was somebody who could be picked on. He knew that Reed Blankenship was a little bit limited in the secondary. I mean, look, all that stuff. We kind of got to ignore that for 11 weeks because they were winning. But I mean, look, these questions have been here all along. But yeah, I mean, the run defense. So you're missing Zach Cunningham. It was shocking to see. Connor gashed him like they did. But I attribute that to Gannon and just knowing that this defense does have weaknesses that can be exploited. And he kind of, I mean, that was the textbook right there. Thank God they didn't play him in week 1, because everyone else would probably just use that for the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely. I want to shift gears to Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts, when you look at his numbers and you exclude the turnovers, and I'm not saying they don't matter, but if you just look at his numbers, straight on, he's actually having a decent year. Actually, the year is pretty on par with last year. The only difference in his production is the turnovers. He has 18 of them. I think he has 14 interceptions and 4 lost fumbles. What's been how have you been evaluating and looking at Jalen Hurts? In his third year as a starter, he signed the new contract. He is the franchise quarterback. With everything they've been going through this year, how have you been looking at Jalen Hurts and how he's handled the up and down nature of the season?
See, I disagree with that. I think that the turnovers are a big thing, but I think the biggest thing with him is like he just doesn't look as dynamic as he did last year. Like he's clearly, I don't know if he's hurt. I don't know if he's. I mean, look, the guy's had a couple of ankle surgeries, one last offseason. He's had the knee thing. He's had, we all saw Michael Vick look like a world beater for 10, 13, 15 games, whatever it was that one year. And McNabb the same way. Remember he was doing the Michael Jackson in the end zone against Washington in 2001. And then, by the end of his 3 or 4 years later, the guy was averaging 15 rushing yards a game. Look, I don't know how old you are, Tone, but look.
Just turned 29.
It goes fast, bro. And right about now, you're never going to feel as good as you did when you were 26. And
I know, trust me.
You're going to hit 31 and 32, and all of a sudden you're like, holy crap. You go out there and you try to do something, and you just can't do it. Like you try to do what you used to do, and then your body just doesn't move that way. Right. And I don't know if Hurts he's a little young for that right now, but he's also taking a lot of punishment. And I think that's the biggest thing. Look, he had 7 runs of 20 yards or more last year. He's got 2 this year. And 3 of them, I think, were in that Green Bay Packers game that they won 40-33. You take away 1 or 2 of those runs, and guess what? Maybe they lose that game 33, 32 or whatever. The biggest thing is he just doesn't have, change. It just does not have that this year, and I think it's impacting everything.
How much blame should the offense get, David, in your estimation, or any at all, for the struggles?
I mean, I think that it's tough to answer because look, the reason they were a Super Bowl team last year was Jalen Hurts played out of his mind and the offense played out of its mind. I mean, they were in a shootout with Pat Mahomes in the Super Bowl. So, I think they're still the offense is still better than the defense, and Jalen Hurts is still a fine quarterback, but they've just lost that that extra 5% that made them a Super Bowl team last year. So, I mean, frankly, I would say probably the offense is to blame, because the defense kind of, is what it is and was what it was. But I mean, it's just hard. Like, contextually, it's hard to answer that. Like, it's the defense is clearly needs work, but the offense has more in it. I think the defense kind of is what it is.
Yeah, it's because it's funny because entering the season, I think we all knew the offense was going to have to carry this defense throughout. But we thought to ourselves the defense would be at least mediocre, right? At least be middle of the pack, and that would be good enough, especially for this offense. And we didn't anticipate the offense having, or at least struggling this much. Some people, they look at the numbers and they say, well, this offense is actually still a top 10 offense at the very least. They're still pretty good. But when you watch the product, something seems off with the execution. Something seems off with the game planning or the play calling. A lot of people say, we're more so focused on the results rather than the actual play calling themselves. Fair enough. But AJ Brown, he said in his press conference, he said, "Look, the coaches don't play, we play. This, the reason we have been successful is because we have been executing." I don't know how much I believe in that. When you hear AJ Brown say it's the players, it's not the coaches, how much do you buy into that?
I buy that he somewhat believes that, I mean, because that's kind of how you're wired as a player. But I mean, look, it's obvious. There's obviously good coaches and bad coaches. Like, coaching matters. And I think that, I'm with you. The offense is like, at one point, it looked like a spread, just like a spread Ohio State offense, like that they've been like all these bubble screens and like, and you watch the Niners out there against them, it looked like they were like, running some sort of 4-dimensional chess, because it's just not. It's kind of a paint by numbers scheme, it feels like. So, yeah, I mean, I think coaching is a part of it, but, at the same time, it's all kind of interconnected, because the quarterback has a lot of sway. So, and the offensive coordinator knows the quarterback really well, and I don't know. So it's every quarterback from the history of time has impacted a game plan. I mean, the offensive coordinator sits down with them, the head coach sits down with them, says, what do you think about this? 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 So, it's almost hard to separate, the quarterback and the coach. I think it's kind of I think both deserve blame. And I think that it's the clunkiness is it's not just our imagination, like whatever the numbers say, people can see it out there with their eyes. And they just don't look like they did last year.
Murph, how about Howie? I mean, they let certain guys go. Understandable in some cases. Hargrave made a lot of money in San Francisco. God bless him. Other guys, not so much, who could have helped them. And certainly Jalen Carter's been a stud, but they've got nothing out of Nolan Smith. So how much blame does he get?
Yeah. I mean,
go ahead, Murph. Yeah, we lost you for 1 second.
I think sorry. I'm lagging a little bit. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a huge question, and I think it's if you look back after 17, the scary thing is it's kind of on the same trajectory right now. Like you had that 17 Super Bowl win, and then all of a sudden it was like 3 years of mediocrity, and it turned out you look back, you're like, oh man, that 17 team was actually, that was the chance, that was the window. Yeah. And I think that, like, not to get all doomsday, but I do think there's a chance that ends up being the case right now. Like that, we're going to look back and be like, and it's the same thing with McNabb and the Rams. You look back, that McNabb Rams team that lost the Rams in the NFC Championship game, very similar vibe to last year, where you're like, oh man, I can't believe we're here. Like, are they really this good? Turns out they were probably better than they ever would be, because look, man, Darius Slay is never going to be as good as he was the year before from this point on. Same thing with James Bradbury. Brandon Graham is going to retire at some point. Fletcher Cox is going to retire at some point. Jason Kelsey is going to retire at some point. Lane Johnson might play forever. But look, right there, you just named 5 or 6 guys that are significant contributors to this team. And as Devontae Smith is going to have to get paid. As all these guys, it's going to be hard to replace those guys. Because the cap dollars aren't necessarily going to be there. It's it's a tale as old as time, and it's why ultimately the quarterback is the one that determines whether you're, a decade-long contender or not. Because that's you can trade Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes will pick up the slack. That's the interesting thing about Jalen, and that's the interesting thing about this team moving forward. It really comes down to the quarterback, because it's like, look, man, we're giving you 25% of the salary cap. You're gonna have to pull that kind of weight. So, to answer the question, yeah, I think Howie's a huge question mark right now. But it all depends on how guys like Nolan Smith turn out. It all depends on whether Jalen Carter, shows up. Who knows? Like he's got to do it for multiple years. He had some question marks coming in. And he's gonna have to prove that he can, withstand an NFL offseason and come back and be the same player. And it's how he's going to be decided on these draft classes here, and I think it's a little too early to tell, but I do think Howie does have a track record of not necessarily building things sustainably, but kind of like, he makes his hay in the NFL free agent and kind of trade market, and that's, those guys stick around for 2 or 3 years, and then, we'll see.
Final question from me, David. Appreciate you for coming on. You brought up a very good point that I kind of want to flesh out with you. The fact that, look, you're paying Jalen Hurts, around 25% of the cap. He's going to have to carry a lot of this load, and a lot of the time, whether you're a contender or not depends on the quarterback position. Based off of the trajectory of Jalen Hurts' career from 2021 up until now, do you think he can be that guy long term for the Philadelphia Eagles? Do you think he can hold up and he can continue to develop?
Yeah, I think there are probably more questions about that than people are comfortable admitting right now. And I think that we've seen, look, you're going to be, I firmly believe this. I think at the end of the day, you're going to have to control the game. You're going to have to stand back there. You're going to have to stand tall, and the game is that's what whatever you do. Otherwise, it's running, whether it's throwing on the run, whether it's whatever. It's the game is such that quarterback who can win the game from the pocket is the quarterback going to have sustained success. It's by Josh Allen added to this game, and that has become one of the best players in the NFL. I think Hurt, the jury's still out. He's been in the pocket this year, and he's been struggling at times. He's doesn't make necessarily the quickest decisions. He's a small guy. He can't necessarily see with when.
I think we lost you, Murph. Listen, the connection was kind of zotzing out there anyway. Murph, listen, we appreciate it, man. Thank you for your time, and I'll tell everybody, Tone, just to remind everybody, really good insights from David there at BY David Murphy on Twitter, and of course Inquirer.com is where you can check out David's work also. So he does a really good job breaking things down. All right, let's get a quickie in here, Tone. Let's come back, and I set over unders for the season for you. In other words, Jalen Hurts is sitting right now at 3,803 yards. I'll give you an over-under based off of that. What do we think he's going to do on Sunday? All right, so we'll hit that when we come back. NFL biggest matchups of the week. Following that, then our NFL segment. We got a lot to do between now and 2, so don't go anywhere. That's Tone DeShields. I'm Rob Ellis. We are Sports Take, JAKIB Sports YouTube Network. I want to tell you right now about Jim Murray and Principal Financial Group, whether it's retirement planning, 401k review, insurance review. You might have a small business. You're trying to get your employee benefits off the ground. It's another area and resource that Jim can help you with. I'm telling you from personal experience that I trust Jim, and I trust Principal Financial Group as well. You should too. They have done right by me. I've entrusted my IRA, my 401k rollovers with Jim, and I couldn't be any happier. You will be too. Give him a call, 610-996-4751, 610-996-4751. You can also email him as well, Murray, Murray.Jim@Principal